Hello everybody, Josh12 back here again with another video, and I'm here with another top 5 list. Yes, it's that time of the week again, so let's get into this week's top 5 list. And considering the fact that this prior week, or this prior weekend, we did not get any new episodes of Dragon Ball Super, I thought it would be appropriate to put some form of Dragon Ball related topic video on my channel, and what better yet than a top 5, considering I haven't done a DBZ top 5 in a long while. So with that being said, this is a more personal list for me. It's a top 5 Dragon Ball Z, specifically a Dragon Ball Z top 5 list of the moments that made me cry as a first viewer. These are the moments that really defined me as a fan and why I love the franchise of Dragon Ball so much. These are basically moments that are so precious to me, that are so amazing, that are so wonderful, that make me cry every single time I watch it, and is one of the main reasons as to why I continue to be such a big fan of the franchise. So it's more of a personal list, but at the end of the day, all my top 5s are personal, so it's my personal list, my personal thoughts, so of course everything's subjective. But at the end of the day, let me know in the comment section whether your top 5 list of moments that make you cry as a fan of Dragon Ball that are so wonderful. And I don't want people to get things a little confused over this list. This is not meant to be the top 5 saddest list or the top 5 deaths list. Those are lists for another time. This is a specific list of just moments that are both sad and are also amazing, that I love and hold dear to me, and why I love the franchise of Dragon Ball so much. So I don't want to get it confused that with other lists that are very similar, like top 5 deaths or top 5 saddest moments, top 5 brutal moments, all that kind of stuff. It's a specifically more personal list than it is those kind of lists. But with that being said and done, hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into this. Coming up number 5 on this top 5 list has to go to Piccolo Sacrifice. Now, for me personally, Piccolo is one of the best characters in the Dragon Ball mythos, and up until this point, he was a villain. He was a reincarnated son of King Piccolo Jr. Spoilers, if you haven't seen Dragon Ball, but of course, if you've seen Dragon Ball Z and you're watching this list, then I don't know why I have to say spoilers. But at the end of the day, Piccolo, up until this point, was a villain. He was doing things for himself, and it wasn't up till this moment where he sacrifices himself in the Saiyan arc to save Gohan that he really shifted. And I remember watching this moment in Dragon Ball Z and thinking, this is probably the greatest Piccolo moment of all time, and it has never been untouched. It's always been so beautiful and such a great moment of his just courage and just the fact that how much he really cares about Gohan. Because up until that point, we get the idea of like Piccolo somewhat cares about Gohan, but he's still kind of a douche. But this was the moment where he completely shifted from on the fence to being a full-blown heroic figure, and I just love this moment. It's such a beautiful moment. Piccolo has these really nice, it's a good transition from one episode to the next, which is Piccolo's flashbacks of being with Gohan during the time period in between the training session and the Saiyan conflict, and we have the actual blast. And this is back when toy animation was awesome, and they actually did stuff really cool with their animation and artistic styles, where they completely shifted. And there's no other real station in this entire freaking series where they went really artistic. I mean, I don't know if it was a budgetary reason, but it made just the fact that they made it a black and white scenario with a little bit of touch of color really made it more impactful than if they just did a full-blown color scheme. And it was so freaking epic and awesome and sad. And then not to mention the last final moments of Piccolo living and Gohan crying over him is just super wonderful. And the reaction that as a viewer you have, the same as Gohan. You're crying because you feel so bad for Piccolo, and it's such an awesome moment, and it's one of my favorite Piccolo moments, and it's just a moment that always makes me cry about how awesome that moment is. But with that being said, moving off that, going to number 4 on this list has to go to Vegeta's death / origin. Now, in the Namek Saga, Vegeta does end up dying, but of course he gets to come back to life via Dragon Balls, because that's what happens when you're in the Dragon Ball universe, unless you're like an inferior character who's never going to come back. But at the end of the day, Vegeta, this is the first time we're seeing Vegeta die. And it's very similar to Piccolo Sacrifice, except it has nothing to be, it has nothing of it has nothing to do with sacrifice. It has a lot to do with the fact that he's a brutal, insufferable douchebag of a person, of a living person, and we're watching him suffer through this horrible act of an even more brutal and horrible person, and watching him die, and looking into his face and knowing that he's so sad that he's about to die, but kind of really wants to die because of how terrible of a life he's lived. And I think that's the beautiful moment about Vegeta's moment here, because he dies again in the series, but I don't feel like, even though it has its own impacts, this one has a more impact, because number one, it's the first time he dies, but on top of that, it's the first time we understand why he's so sad to die right now, because of all the horrible shit he had to go through because of this one fucking guy, which is Frieza, who was the main freaking threat at the time of this part in the series. And it's just such a wonderful moment. I remember watching that and just thinking, Vegeta's awesome, but he's also, he's a person, at least at this point in time in the franchise, where you love to hate him. But this is the moment where you feel bad for him. And you don't want to feel bad because he's done terrible things. You know, he was the main problem in the Saiyan threat. He killed lots of Namekians. He's a problem. But you feel bad for him. And it's sad. And it's really bad. And even Goku feels bad for him because, you know, it's just such a horrible moment. And I feel like it's hands down, probably in my personal opinion, the best Christopher Sabat performance in all of his performances in Dragon Ball Z. Someone could debate me with that, and someone could say, oh no, he was better now in Kai or in the movies and blah blah blurbity blurbity blurb. Okay, sure, fuck it, why not? But in my personal subjective opinion, Christopher Sabat's best performance is right here at this moment, because it's a moment where you really turn from being a Vegeta hater to a Vegeta fan. And I think if it wasn't for this one moment, a lot of people wouldn't give a shit about Vegeta years later. And because of this moment, people do give a shit about him. And I love it. And it's just a wonderful moment. And it's really cool to see the psychology of a villain who up until this point we only thought was pure evil. But with that being said, and done. Moving off of that, I'm going to number 3 on this list. And it always gets to me. And it always, like, I don't even know. It's just, every time I even think about it, it's just a touching, beautiful, sad, but also amazing moment. And that is, coming number 3, Goku meets Goten for the first time. Now, in the manga, anime and manga are significantly different in certain circumstances, but in this moment, it's very different. In the manga, when Goku meets Goten the first time, spoilers if you haven't read the manga, but it's not that impactful. It's kind of like whatever, like Goku, he kind of like, he shrugs it off and he kind of mentions it like offhand, off collar to a certain degree. He's kind of like, Chi-Chi, what's that? What's with the little me behind you or whatever the fuck? And then that's it. It's over. You don't really have a good impactful moment with Goku and Goten like you do in the freaking anime. And I don't know why that was. Maybe it was Toriyama who was like, I don't know, maybe he was sick and tired of writing Dragon Ball and he was like, I'm just gonna finish this chapter up so I can fucking go home and get my paycheck or something. I don't know. This is back in the 90s or the 80s or some such shit. So I can't get into the mentality of Akira Toriyama at the certain point in time writing this fucking series. However, I do know the anime completely destroyed this moment in a big, awesome way. The moment is so freaking beautiful that even if you're a hardcore douchebag sack of shit of a human being, you cannot help but feel touched by that moment. You can't help but feel saddened and you want to cry like everybody else. It's a beautiful moment. It's the first time we're seeing Goku the first time in such a long time, with the exception of the filler episodes, which isn't canon, but it kind of is canon to the anime, whatever. And then this is the first moment we're seeing him meet the other new character of the series, which is his second son, freaking Goten. It's such an awesome moment. I remember watching it and just feeling like a bag of bricks that just fell on the ground. I just crumbled and just felt like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. It makes you want to cry. It's just a wonderful moment. Goten's reaction is nice. And I think it also plays off into Goku's character, more or less in the anime than it does in the manga, where you get the feeling of how pure his character is. We get this logistically throughout the series, you know, like in Dragon Ball and like in the Cell Saga and stuff like that, where people talk about Goku and how wonderful of a character he is. This is a moment where I think it defines him as a character, because realistically in the real world, this kind of a moment would not happen the same way it does in the show. In the real world, if you had a father who was never in your fucking life and he just came out of nowhere and was like, hey, what's up, you would fucking hate that guy. But in this, in this reality of Dragon Ball, it just feels more real because Goku, not more real, but it just feels more impactful because Goku is just like, he has that element of like, hey, hey, how's it going? And then it's just, but he's so pure and earnest about it, where it's like you feel free with him, you feel happy just to be around him. He makes you a better person for being around him, and that's how beautiful he is, and that's how cool Goten reacts. It's just a wonderful moment. I love it. It's freaking awesome. It's hands down probably the most purest moments in the entire Buu saga, with the exception of, if I guess, like the baby Pan stuff or whatever. And the Vegeta Sacrifice moments or whatever and stuff like that. But overall, this was an awesome moment. I love it, and it's freaking wonderful. But with that being said and done, moving off of that, going to number 2 on this list is kind of it's not really a tie because one scene follows the other, and it's kind of like one entire scene, so I'm going to count it as one, so take that with take that as you will. But coming number 2 has to go to Android 16's death and Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation. Now, in the manga, it's very brutal, and it's very just horrible looking, the way Android 16 dies. In the anime, it's a little bit more colorful, a little bit more like, it's very much an anime, and it just very much feels like, oh my god, he just died, he just got squashed like a bug, and now shit's gonna go down. But I think the greatest moment about it that always impacts me is that Android 16 wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a horrible person. He was designed to destroy Goku. He was designed for evil things, evil deeds by Gero. But he changed that. He became a good person. And now he was dying. It kind of felt like in Dragon Ball when, Goku was dealing with the androids. It felt very much like a throwback to that. And Gohan and 16 have this moment of talking. And I just love the dialogue. It's probably like, this entire scenario in general was probably like the greatest thing. This is like the peak of like Toriyama's writing / artistry, where he just beautifully orchestrates this sequence of Android 16 talking about how there are some people in this world that you cannot reach. There are people in this world who are so past the limit where you can't reach them with words, and you need to let go and just destroy him. Don't let the world that I love die. And that's kind of like what 16's saying to him, and then he just straight up dies. Cell destroys him. And it's so brutal and so insane. And I love Gohan's reaction to it because it's, in the manga he doesn't say anything, in the anime he says some kind of things, and I like the overall moment in both settings, but I love the moment that Gohan's reaction in general, because it just shows how great of a character he is, or at least what he was up until Dragon Ball Super destroyed his, entire reputation, if you will. But overall, it just shows how amazing his character is that he doesn't want to kill anybody, he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but he has to defeat Cell because he can't talk him out of it. He can't reach him, and he just let 16 die. And I think the moment that really gets to me and makes me really, embarrassingly cry about it is just that Gohan, the thing that really makes him transform to a Super Saiyan 2 is less about 16's death, but the fact that he couldn't save him. He stood there and watched him die, and that's what made him want to become a Super Saiyan 2. He doesn't want that to happen, and he has to stop Cell. And it's a wonderful moment in both the anime and manga. I think they both are neck and neck on how perfectly amazing how they executed. The music, same thing. Both, Funimation dubbed, the original Japanese orchestrated music is both amazing. Everything about this sequence is probably like the pinnacle of Akira Toriyama's artistry / writing, his authorship in all of Dragon Ball. In my personal subjective opinion, it's just amazing, beautiful moment. With that being said and done, I'm going to skip the honorable mentions because I've been talking way too long. And plus, I don't want to just completely wrench out my heart here. So let's just get into my number 1 pick, which has to go to Goku's I Am Speech. Now, this is probably the greatest Goku moment in all of, his history in the series. And that's just my personal opinion, but I just love this moment. It's one of those moments where you watch the series up until this point, especially if you lived back in the 90s and you got first introduced into Dragon Ball Z, then you know. But up until this point, we seen him go through the Saiyan conflict. We saw him go through the Ginyu Force and the Namek Saga and that kind of stuff. And we see him fight Frieza. And there's a lot of beautiful moments that go into Goku fighting Frieza. This is where you turn. This is the moment, at least for me, where I went from being a Goku fan to straight up having him be my #1 favorite definitive superhero of all time. More than Batman, more than Superman, more than Wolverine, Captain America, Spider-Man combined. This is the moment where Goku became my definitive favorite superhero of all time. This is the speech. Granted, it's very different from the manga, and I love the manga as much as anybody else, and I love that moment as well in the manga, and I know they did that for Kai, I understand that, but this original dub of it, and I know a lot of people will have their specific problems with it, but I don't give a shit. It's my personal subjective list, so leave me alone. But this is the moment where I fell in love with this character, and he became definitively my favorite. I mean, the speech itself is so amazing, and it just shows how courageous and heroic and stoic and amazing this character's become in the span of just a year and a half that we've watched this character. It's such an amazing moment. It just shows how Goku, no matter at what kind of point in his life that he's in a certain point in time, he is going to make sure that he is going to win, and he knows he's going to win, and this is the point where he just became possibly Earth's greatest hero, but a more universal hero, a galactic hero. This is where he's standing up for the universe. He's standing up for everyone, all of innocence, and he's going to stop all evil, starting with this piece of crap, which is Lord Frieza, the main bad, of course, up until this point in the franchise. And it's such an awesome, epic, amazing moment. And I love it. And it's one of those moments and one of those speeches that I always have to listen to at least once a day. Once a day, I have to listen. Even when I'm working out, I can't work out unless I listen to Goku's I Am speech. You know, I am the hope of the universe. That I need to listen to that. It makes me want to continue to live. I want to climb mountains. I want to do stuff. I want to create things. I want to do all this shit in the day because I listened to that speech. It's so freaking awesome and epic and amazing. Granted, a lot of people will have their different problems. They love the manga version. They love the Kai version. They want those kind of versions. They don't like the Funimation English dub. That's okay. That's awesome. That's all right. That's your preference. That's your perspective, your subjective opinion. But my opinion is that this is the greatest moment for me, and this is the moment where he became my favorite superhero, and it's my most great. It's just the moment where it just touches me all the time. That sounds fucked up and kind of dirty when I say it, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about it. But with that being said and done, this has been my top 5 list of moments in Dragon Ball Z that make me cry like a baby. I don't know how I'm going to title it, but that's basically where I'm coming from. So hopefully you enjoyed, and let me know what your personal top 5 list is of moments that make you cry in Dragon Ball Z that are awesome, or amazing, or sad, or depressing, or just let me know in the comment section below. And of course, with all my top 5 lists, they're all subjective. So hopefully you enjoy regardless. But with that being said and done, next week is the release date of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And for that, I will be releasing my last top 5 list that's for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. So hopefully you enjoy that one and be on the lookout for next Monday. But with that being said and done, hope you guys enjoyed. Shameless plug time. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jonch12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And this has been Jonch12.